Michael here with another Michael's Guitar Reviews. This guitar will be familiar to many of you. They were produced in huge numbers in Italy in the 1960s, the 1970s and into the early 1980s. 80s of course, and EKO, call it what you like, but this one's a 12-string, EKO Ranger 12-string. A very interesting guitar, this particular one. It's probably unique, and I'll explain why in a moment. But it's got lots of other things that we need to talk about today as well. It's a big-bodied guitar. It's got 12 strings. It makes a lot of noise. The neck, I think when they arranged the specification for the neck, it had to be strong enough and heavy enough to be able to leave a car off the ground. You believe me? It feels like that, but I'm sure that wasn't really the case. And the body, the wood, is strong enough for you to stand a car on it. It's really thick, very thick. And the fact that it's thick and laminated means it's a guitar that's more of an agricultural construction, something that's built to last, something that you could knock fence posts in with and it will still come back and play. Am I selling this to you? Anyway, let's have a look through some of the characteristics and then we'll have a little listen. It's got a very well-known headstock shape, and of course the logo, which is a big thick piece of plastic that's been stuck on the top there. 12 strings of course. The neck itself is made in several parts and it has open tuners, and those open tuners do need cleaning and they do need lubricating. Otherwise they're going to get sticky and stiff and stuck and not be very pleasant. It's got a truss rod. It usually has a cover over the top of the adjuster here, but this particular one doesn't have. It's also got a steel, looks like steel, nut, and right in front of that nut is the first of the frets. This is a 0 fret, so called. On this one I notice a hole at the back, and that hole is very likely at some point to have been used to put a button on for a strap. Now, personally, I find this not ideal, because if you think about it, if you have a strap fastened around here or on a button at the back, there's a lot of stress this way on the neck. This becomes a long lever and potentially it could stress the guitar and alter things like the intonation possibly. So far better to do what they've subsequently done, which is put one just here or underneath if you wanted to put one underneath. But this is a better place. Let's just stay on the neck for a little while. Yes, it's made in several pieces. It's a flat C profile. So this is quite a narrow distance between the fingerboard and the back of the neck, which makes it a little bit easier to hold. Being a 12-string, of course, there's a lot of bulk to play with. It's got a rosewood fingerboard and it's got these block inlays which look like some sort of pearloid material, it's also got side markers for the corresponding to where the dots are on the fingerboard, so you can see what you're playing, and binding of course, which is nice all the way down. Now these particular frets may have had some attention at some time, or they might have come out of the factory without any rough edges on, but it's always nice to know that they feel quite smooth, as does the edge of the nut. Sometimes this is overlooked and it's quite sharp. This one's not. The neck itself bolts onto the body here. This is a very well known means of constructing these guitars. It's a laminate body, and I suspect this possibly might be from the 1960s, and I'll tell you why. Because it's got this sepia-toned label inside. There are no serial numbers, so it's impossible to date it really. and a slightly more elaborate rosette. Now, you'll have noticed straight away there's a pickup on this one. This is one of the things I need to talk about in a moment, but I'll come back to that. One of the problems with 12-string guitars, well, there are a number of, shall we say, challenges. And one of them is the tension exerted by the strings that way is enormous. And so you can get what this one suffers with. Can you see? Instead of being flat, it's raised. The bridge is raised. This is going to bring the strings forward, and this is going to affect intonation. So that's why it won't sound perfectly intonated. Also, there's a crack on the back of this one and some lifting. Even though this has a laminate top, there's some lifting. So all in all, that makes for a guitar that's going to be difficult to get it to sound really good. These also have an adjustable saddle for the bridge, a single saddle, and you can just turn the screw to make it go up or down, which is a very handy thing if you want to adjust the height. There's some history with this guitar. Somebody's tried to put the bridge back on with a pop rivet. The bridge is actually coming away. You may be able to see that just here. And also, probably to do with humidity changes, you may not be able to see it, but there's a crack. And that crack goes linear all the way along here. So the wood has dried out, it's cracked. It's in a bit of a sad state really, isn't it? Anyway, let's say a little bit more. They have a lovely shape and they project really well, so you get a loud sound. The woods on these guitars as well varies enormously in terms of the figuring. This particular one has got exquisite figuring, and I mean beautiful figuring. Just look at that. It's almost like a hologram on the sides and the back. It's so beautiful, that wood. Absolutely stunning. I've looked at it for a long time and it looks like it's actually got ridges in it, but of course it won't have. It's just the beautiful figuring gets your eye and makes you think that. But yes, interesting guitar. Now, a couple of other points worth mentioning. Yes, it's had a pickup fitted which is across the sound hole. It's also got a microphone inside. You may not be able to see that, but it's just inside here. And it's got a preamp with a battery in it and sliders, so you can select to use either the across the sound hole pickup or the microphone pickup that's inside, or both. And look, where are we looking? Here. You've got a standard jack input and an XLR input. So you've got two different types of inputs. So the kinds of things you might be able to do will be to plug these into two separate sources, two separate amplifiers, and get a whole range of all sorts of sounds. Interesting, eh? I've not found another one with this configuration. But if you've seen one, or you know a bit more about it, do let me know. Now, a couple of other things that I just want to mention about 12-string guitars in general. You may already know this, so forgive me if you do. The 12 strings are tuned, the first two, which are similar to a first E string on a 6-string guitar, they're tuned in unison. In other words, they're tuned together. Now, obviously people will have their own preferences for different types of weird and wonderful tunings, but by and large, as a standard, those two are tuned together, so they sound the same. And that applies equally to the next, the B string. They will both sound the same. It gets interesting when you come to the next string, the G string, because these are tuned an octave apart. So you've got two different sounds, but with the same actual note. But because of the string thicknesses, you're getting a huge difference and a really rich, colourful sound. The same applies to the D, A and the E strings. So each of those, the thicker string is tuned as per normal. The thinner string that sits beside it is tuned one octave higher. and you get that lovely, amazing sound that you can get with 12 strings as a result. The other thing some people find is that playing a 12-string guitar requires a little bit more strength, certainly, because the tension on the strings makes them very, very hard in comparison to, say, a solid electric guitar with lightweight strings on. Sometimes it makes it a little bit more difficult. The strings are sometimes more difficult to press. And what some people do, and I've done it myself before, is instead of tuning up to standard tuning, which is, you know, your E and so forth, they tune it down one tone. So in other words, the string is slightly less tense, and when you play the open string, instead of an E, you would have a D. So if you put a capo or capo onto the second fret, then it then changes everything back, so that when you're playing the open strings with the capo or capo in position, it sounds exactly the same as it would if you had tightened them up. But what it does for you is it makes the strings slightly less tense and therefore a little easier to play. So quite a lot of people will do that with 12-string guitars. This one I hadn't mentioned has got a little volute on the back. Because of the tension on the strings, if these fall over, they can break very easily. And that can sometimes give it a little bit of an extra strength. But there we are. So, we've got a 12-string EKO guitar from a factory in Italy. This one's likely to be in the 1960s, but they went through the 70s and early 80s. They've also had a resurgence where they've started to reissue some of these guitars as well. Generally speaking though, these are quite bulky, chunky and heavy. But having said that, the number of people who are well known who've played them, and there's plenty on the internet about that, there are loads and loads of people. So they have been very popular, and for many people they were an affordable way into a reasonable sounding guitar in the early days. So let's have a little listen and see what it sounds like without any amplification to start with. Then we'll plug it in and we'll play around with some of the variations. Here we are, so this is it. This is completely acoustic. It's very resonant as well as being powerful and loud. Okay, let's plug in now and see what it sounds like amplified. Okay, we've got plugged in now. Two amplifiers, both leads, the XLR and the jack input. I'm going to just go through some of the sounds that we can get with this guitar, and the various selections between the sound hole pickup and also the microphone that's inside the sound hole, and we'll see what they're like individually and also when they're blended together. I'm going to start with, this is the sound hole pickup, just on standard medium sort of settings, halfway if you like on the slider, just to see what sort of sounds we can get, and then we'll move to the microphone and then blend the two together. So this is just the across the rosette sound hole pickup. And now let's move the slider to select the microphone inside. Here we go. And let's blend the two of those pickups together. So we've got the microphone and the across the sound hole pickup. Here we go. Interesting mix of sounds. Let's just move the sliders on the microphone pickup first of all and see what it sounds like a little bit sharper. Here we go. And now move the slider completely to the other end, so it should be a bit more bassy. This is on the microphone pickup. Definitely a lot more muffled. And I'm going to select the across the sound hole pickup now and move both sliders up towards the sharper end. This is the sound hole pickup. And let's blend them together with the sharpest possible sound. Here we go. So there we have it. What's the verdict? Well, it stood the test of time. A lot of people like these. They are very heavy. They are very solid. They are a 12 string that is as prone to all the other 12 strings problems. Mainly this issue of string tension causing the bridge to go forward and lift, and for the back of the top at the back of the bridge to raise slightly. This affects intonation. That's one problem. The other is that they are physically different to play. You do get used to it. You can ameliorate to some extent some of the problems with pressing the strings down because of the tension simply by reducing it by one tone. In other words, tune down one tone from E to D, put a capo on here, and then you just start at this second fret position or third fret position, and it's much easier. There's no doubt they sound amazing and you can get some lovely sounds out of them, and also in a live venue, if you don't want to have amplification and you want power and projection, one of these will give you that power and projection. So overall, interesting guitar. Not the easiest guitar to live with or to play necessarily, all the time that is, and in this one's particular case it does need some attention from a luthier to get the bridge off, either repair the bridge or put on a different bridge, make sure it's secure and do something to stop this bellying of the top so that you can get the bridge and the top to be flatter and you can get the intonation better, because otherwise they don't sound just right. They sound okay and they're very forgiving, but if you really want it right, then you need to get that sorted. So this is Michael. Michael's Guitar Reviews again. Please subscribe. If you subscribe, we get more people to watch the channel. There are loads and loads of these videos out there now, and it's about sharing, and it's about getting people to enjoy, hopefully enjoy, watching videos about maybe lots of different guitars that you wouldn't otherwise have come across, and being able to share ideas. I always appreciate your constructive comments and feedback. Very grateful that you're watching. I just love doing these videos. So thanks for watching again. Please do think about subscribing. It's so easy, it's simple, it's cheap. It doesn't cost you anything. Please subscribe. It's free. There are no catches. Just get alerts to when the next video is coming out. There are dozens and dozens of these videos now on this channel. All out there, every one of them, in the hope that somebody gets something out of them that helps them either to understand something a bit better, or brings back some nostalgia about a guitar you owned in the past, or maybe there's one you're thinking of buying and you just want a little bit of a different idea about what's it like. Thank you again, and bye for now.